Okay, good morning, everybody. We should be live here, and welcome to this week's virtual plant clinic. My name is Bill Lester. I'm with University of Florida IFAS Extension Service here in Hernando County, Florida. And with me today are my regular co-host, Colby Pitts, who's the Hernando County Florida Friendly Landscape Coordinator. Good morning, Colby.
Good morning.
And Bernie, who is one of our Hernando County Master Gardeners, and who I always give the difficult questions to because he has years of experience answering these things. So, as always, we are here to answer your questions. So, if you have a question, a comment, anything about lawns, landscapes, trees, fruits, vegetables, whatever it might be, just go ahead and put them in the comments. Teresa is not here with us today. So she's the master of whatever we're talking about. She knows what we're trying to get at, and she pulls up references and puts links in there. But we'll do our best to go ahead and share links to University of Florida research-based information if you want to read more about what your question pertains to. So I see that we have at least a few of our regulars on here this morning. Good morning, Bassem. And Alessandra is probably out in the garden with her little earbuds in listening to us. I think that's how she usually does it. And good morning, Bill. And Alessandra says she just transplanted her squash and squash bugs are already there. Tough time of year for growing squash right now because all the insects and all the diseases are still out there. I had to load some stuff in my car this morning. We're doing a presentation at the Hernando County Health Department. And you know what? It's sunny and it's hot and it's humid and it's steamy. It is not winter yet, nowhere near here. So all those different little pests are still out there. And I see Colby's right on top of it, pulling up some information on squash bugs in case you're not really sure what a squash bug is or what it looks like. You'll get squash bugs, you'll get stink bugs, you will get leaf-footed bugs, you will get the tiny little caterpillars that drill into your fruit when your summer squash flowers and you start to get squash. So you can grow squash this time of year. It's just really difficult to.
Found a new bug yesterday I hadn't seen for a while. Had a praying mantis on the side of the car. So took its picture and left it alone.
You'll see them every once in a while. You see them out in the woods and in fields, and we do have them here in Florida. We generally don't have the really, really huge green ones like they do up north, but we've got about 24 species here in Florida that if you look real hard, you'll find them. They're out there. And I see Buddy is here with us this morning for the Panhandle. So if Buddy was to plant squash in his garden today, he might have a slightly easier time of it because he is farther north than we are. So he's closer to fall than we are. It did not feel like we're close to it really at all this morning outside. So Colby, what have you been up to?
Let's see. We're kind of reworking our how we're doing the rain barrel, workshops. Not so much anything that will affect anyone who attends, but kind of more on our end. Some of the logistical parts of it I'm working on. We're also preparing for starting in January a new event we're going to hold here every month, titled as of now the Water Awareness Speaker Series. So I'm kind of getting topics together for that, getting some projects, trying to arrange speakers and things like that. I know you're going to speak at our January one talking about cool season vegetables, I believe.
Okay.
And I'm going to follow up with cold season landscape care. So that's kind of where my focus has been the past little bit, because we're trying to make it pretty good, some good incentives for people to come, not only some interesting topics, but also, like I said, some incentives. There's going to be some giveaways, some things like that. So if you are a resident of Hernando County, we do invite you to stay tuned to our various social pages, things like that. so you can stay up to date on exactly what we have going on.
And when you get it on Facebook, let me know, and I'll put it on our Facebook, and that way everybody will hear about it. Hopefully everyone will show up for it. Water is always a very important topic. I don't care where you live in Florida. It's a very important topic for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
If you'd like one on lawns, I'd like to do one in March.
Bernie, you do not know how happy I am to hear you say that. March has been a pretty tough one.
So Bill has a question. He has a new either volunteer plant or weed in his beds, and his plant ID app identifies it as hairy indigo, which we do have here in Florida. Kind of a little viney looking weed, and it will eventually flower. It usually gets little pink flowers, I believe. He says it's attractive to me. I don't mind keeping it. Does anyone have experience with it? Bernie, isn't that toxic to livestock and animals and horses?
I think it is, and that's one of those that responds fairly well to either 2,4-D or Roundup. So something to think about. The big problem with this kind of a weed is that it does tend to really get invasive. So if you want a few, you have to really work at keeping it a few. And if you let them go, then you're going to have a lot.
Yeah, it has a really tough stem, a little difficult. I mean, you can pull it up if you want to manually pull them up, but it's a little tough too. They get a little. I have some in my backyard. I have personal experience with trying to rip it out of the ground.
I believe they're annuals, which makes them fairly easy to take care of.
Yeah. So, Bill, as long as you don't have any livestock to worry about, you probably won't have any issues with it staying in your yard. Just be aware that it can spread and might get kind of out of control.
I do see here the hairy indigo, Indigofera hirsuta, is non-toxic.
Okay.
According to the University of Florida, anyway.
That's
it's a legume. Interesting.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yep. I guarantee you, I have some mixed into my regular lawn outside. I have a freedom lawn, so I got a little bit of everything going on out there.
Mm-hmm.
One day I should go out and take a real close look and try to inventory what all I have growing out there.
Yeah, I'm actually in a kind of similar situation. We're moving, so I had the house I live in now, currently for the next 2 days, is I have a loosely Bahia lawn. Probably 75% Bahia. There's other stuff there. I'm moving into a lawn that is probably 85 to 90% St. Augustine.
Oh no! Is it
choice.
HOA?
No, no.
Okay, good.
And there are the front yard. The front yard's pretty full. There's other stuff mixed in there. Things that I actually can't. I'm actually not even sure what they are. I've only taken a very cursory look of everything. But the back has a lot of open spots. There's a lot of shade. And I thought that it'd be a good thing that I could mention here, because maybe, not only for my sake, but maybe other people going through the same thing of what, I have these two big old oak trees that, kind of coat the entire backyard with shade. And one of my goals is to fill out this backyard with some kind of vegetation, just really for the dirt, for the dust. I don't want it to be super dusty back there. So some of the stuff I've thought about is maybe just doing perennial peanut back there. I don't have dogs, or I don't have anything that's going to be walking on it, running on it. No kids or anything like that yet. So that was kind of my thought. But I was kind of interested to see what y'all's takes were on it.
Well, if you have big trees in heavy shade, and especially roots popping up, you will have much thinner turf grass.
Mm-hmm.
Even the varieties of St. Augustine that tolerate shade better.
Mm-hmm.
After a certain point, it's so shady that even they're going to be thin.
Yeah. A lot of leaf litter as well. So it's
yeah.
I don't have a lot of confidence in growing in keeping good turf grass back there. I tell you what, in my process of finishing moving this weekend, I'll take pictures, and maybe we can talk about it next week.
Okay, sure.
you need more sunlight for the ecoturf or
Mm-hmm.
peanut than you do for grass. So uh, that does present a problem. And recommendation is before you get all excited about these things, get a soil test. You
Mm-hmm.
need the pH of the front yard and the pH of the backyard, and it makes a big difference on what you actually can put in. So uh, it's all conjecture until you know what the pH is.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So Bassem has a question about stem galls on his ornamental cherry. I think Bassem lives over in Seminole County.
I don't think you can do anything about them.
Yeah, maybe not necessarily the best place for an ornamental cherry. And it all depends on exactly the variety, but I know that they're very commonly grown up north in the landscape. Um, Stem galls are generally not a problem for plants. A gall is going to be caused by a microscopic either fly or wasp, and it's kind of swelling on the stem or on the leaf. There's a million different gall-forming insects,
Mm-hmm.
and the galls look completely different. I mean, you can look online. There's a million different pictures and examples of galls in general, but it's not the kind of thing that's going to that you ever really need to treat for.
Mm-hmm.
There's a species of microscopic wasp or fly that's making its home on occasion in the twigs and branches of your ornamental cherry. And even though a lot of people will consider it to be unsightly looking, it's really not damaging. I know it's a problem with commercial nurseries that grow landscape trees. For example, they'll grow oak trees, and if the oak trees get galls, it doesn't hurt the oak tree, but it's harder to sell them now because it has galls, and people consider it not attractive.
I find those galls to be super interesting because they're not even they are, I guess, technically an adaptation by the plant, but really what they are is an adaptation by whatever insect or bacteria or whatever is causing, because there's a billion different things that could cause these galls,
Mhm.
and they over the millions of years, millennia, whatever that insect has been trying to live in this tree, it has developed some way to form, to cause that plant to form, to grow at a house, pretty much. Um, I know some people prune them off, but there's really no, they don't hurt your plant at all. Um, any issue you have from is not going to be from the gall; it's going to be from something else. It's like the gall's kind of a symptom, not really a cause, I would say.
Yeah, and if you get them, you're probably going to get them
Mm-hmm.
every year, and there's really no preventative. There's no control that's going to actually control them. They are inside the stem now, so they're very difficult to get to. HOC family had a problem with sand spurs coming up the last week or so, but said they were pulling them out by the roots as they're able to, and that is effective. I've spoken with people who have problems with sand spur in the past, and they diligently pull them all out this time of year because they're very, very easy to find the hard way. And over time, they have far less southern sand spur in their yard. They have a large bag full, still a lot more to go, but still not as bad as before the pre-emergence. So that's just a good example of how pre-emergence can help. They can lower the amount of sand spurs that you have, but probably you're not going to get 100% control with just a pre-emergent. It's going to take time, patience, diligence, maybe pulling them out by hand. Bernie, I spoke with somebody the other day about sand spurs and told them the idea. I asked, how do you cut your grass? You use a riding lawnmower? They said, yeah. I said, you could drag a piece of carpet behind it and get up all the sand spurs this time of year. He said, that's great. I never thought of that. So
That is very, very important. The funny thing about it is sand spurs really are something that likes terrible conditions. So the more you improve the lawn, the fewer sand spurs you have. And the more of those seeds you pick up and use for the pre-emergent, it's probably a 3-year program to totally eradicate something if you're using pre-emergent. If the pre-emergent is 95% effective, that means that if there are 100 seeds there, 95 of them can't germinate now. But that gives you 5 plants that are going to produce seeds for next year. So the idea is you keep taking the number of plants down, and you keep picking up the seeds, and eventually everything pretty well goes away. Uh, One thing that people do make mistake on a lot is that they have uh, a little thing with that looks like a sand spur, and it really isn't. Uh, and it's a sedge. So if the little pointy thing is damaging to your hand when you try and pick it up, that is a sand spur. And if it's soft when we squeeze it, that is a sedge. And sedges are annoying, but sedges kind of look like grass. I really think that in a composite lawn, sedges are probably one of the important plants. They tend to look nice when they're mowed, and they tend to do great. But uh, picking up the seeds, using pre-emergent, and improving the quality of lawn, 3-year project, and you pretty well can get rid of the sand spurs.
I remember, I think it was last year that they asked about that we gave them the rundown on sand spur treatment, so they would be in year 2, and like they said, there's been not as bad as before. So like, that's like Bernie's saying, you're not, multi-year process. It's going to get better every year. That's the case with a lot of plant control. It's you almost never get total eradication, period, but you really don't get control over it in one cycle of treatment, and that goes for big, large and small infestations of even typically easy to get rid of plants. You're still going to deal with multiple treatment cycles for almost anything.
Yeah, we always talk about control, not necessarily eradication.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine that in a square yard of soil, you have thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of seeds, and they're all sitting there waiting. Where the seeds you plant for things you want last a year, maybe 2 years. There are weed seeds that'll sit there and last for 30 years, and all you need is give them a little sunlight, a little soil, and the first day it rains, boom, here's a 2-foot plant that you had no idea was going to show up. So I had that problem with some thistle. Couldn't believe that thistle showed up in this area, and it hadn't been disturbed for 4 or 5 years. So those seeds had been sitting there for at least 4 years, maybe 5 years, before they ever did anything. And it was just from some fill. So once I got them pretty well under control, it hasn't been a problem.
Yeah, I got a bucket of compost from a local community garden a couple years ago, and used a good part of it in my garden, and then took the last little bit. I had a low spot right next to the air conditioning unit out in the backyard. Darn if I didn't get a air potato vine in it. I still have it.
Yeah.
Comes up every year, and I keep it under control, and I wait to see if and when the air potato beetles are going to come, and they have. I got a random caterpillar on it once before that chewed up part of a leaf, so I got a video of it, because even though air potato has really nothing that it likes to feed on, and caterpillars will eat a little bit, we'll take a few bites out of it. So we got a question from Chatting with Ales about, is it too late to start seeds for the garden? Here in Central Florida, it's never too late to start seeds for the garden. The question is, which seeds should you be starting for the garden? So I pulled up a link to University of Florida Vegetable Gardening Guide, and went ahead and put that in the comments right there. And Bernie has a physical paper copy of it. So if you're referring to vegetables and vegetable garden, right now is when you want to be planting either seeds in a tray to create transplants or seeds directly in your garden for all the cool season vegetables. And if you pull up that publication, it has all the different various things that you can grow here and when you want to grow them. I can tell you right now, if you try growing carrots in June, July, and August, things will not work out well. If you try growing green peppers in your garden December, January, and February, unless you have a way of keeping them warm or we have an unusually warm winter, that's not going to work out well here. They're going to freeze. Both can grow very well here. You just need to do it the right time of year. And that has for every different, there's not a whole lot that you can't grow here. Only things I can think of is probably rutabagas. If you buy rhubarb, you cannot grow here. Lavender does not do well here. Some people say there's certain varieties, and they'll struggle and hang on before they die. Other varieties of lavender, when we hit, beginning of summer, boom, it falls over and dies. It's too hot here, too hot to heal it. What's that vegetable? It's like a carrot, but it's not a carrot. They're kind of white. Maybe somebody else can help me out here who moved here from up north. I've never tried them. Trivia question for today. I don't think they grow well here either. Because even during our winters, it's still a little bit too warm.
Brussels. Now, that vegetable garden guide, if you haven't been a gardener for at least 5 years in Florida, that is probably the absolute best source of information there is. So anybody that even thinks they might be newbies at gardening really should download a copy of that Florida Vegetable Gardening Guide. Just Google that and add the letters UF, pops right up. Has planting dates, has the preferred varieties, some more information on how to plant. You cannot ask for any better information to get started. And if you want to come by, we'll give you a copy. So, but somehow get a copy of that. It puts all the information of a $20 gardening book in 10 pages. It's pretty well condensed. If you follow that thing, you actually end up being pretty successful. So that's your starting spot.
Okay, it looks like both Phyllis and Joan won our trivia question for today. Parsnips. I don't think I've ever had a parsnip. Have you guys?
No.
Parsnips are kind of like turnips.
That's just like a word that I've heard before. I didn't even know.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah, I know you are generally going to cook them and boil them, and it grows. It's shaped similar to a carrot. You see them at the grocery stores every once in a great while. They're kind of white on the outside. It looks like a white carrot, believe it or not.
Aren't there actual white carrots, though?
I'm sure there are. Carrots originally, hundreds of years ago were purple, I believe. And then we bred them and selected them for orange. But now you can get seeds for different varieties of carrots that are going to grow in different colors. They still taste like carrots. They just come out a different color. So that adds variety to your garden. And Phyllis said they're really good with other roasted fall vegetables. Okay, I'm going to look at the grocery store, and if I ever find parsnips, I'm going to buy them and try them at least, and we will report back.
They're similar to turnips. That kohlrabi, parsnips, turnip thing are pretty much the same kind of plant.
Yeah, and you can grow kohlrabi here, believe it or not. It does really well during the winter, and you can grow turnips. And if you pick the leaves off of it, those are turnip greens. So you can eat the greens or put it in the ground, let it get the actual large round root, and eat the turnips.
Beets do well in the winter here. That's kind of a neat plant. I like the beets.
And I like the beet foliage the best. It has a really unique taste. So you can use it either raw or lightly cooked like you would, with cooked spinach. So that's another possibility. They all do well in the winter here. So if you plant the right things at the right time of year, that really gets you a good part of the way towards being successful. And Bassam asked about the best time to harvest his cassava, how to know if it's ready or not. Your cassava plants are going to grow tall and large, and you can kind of feel around the roots to get an idea of, do I have any big roots down here? I really don't feel any roots at all. You can leave them in the ground until really the first cold snap. Because if you leave them in the ground through freezing weather, they're very susceptible to freeze and cold damage, and they're going to die. But I would try to leave them in the ground for as long as you can, like right now as we go into late summer, early fall. Leave them in there until closer to real cold weather time, and then feel around as best you can to figure out if it's right time to pick them or not. You can use the feeling around underground with your fingers to get an idea of, are my carrots big enough to pull yet? Are my sweet potatoes big enough to pull yet? And the longer you leave them in the ground, hopefully the larger all those roots are going to grow and the bigger the cassava you get. Have you guys ever tried cassava, also known as yuca?
No.
I love it.
I don't think so.
It's an essential in Cuban cuisine. Because they grow it in Cuba, South and Central America. How can we always head off into recipes and turning this into a cookie?
We do this right before lunch.
Yeah, I'm sure that's part of it.
Well,
And
the only two things that people like in this world are food and sex. We can't talk about one, so we end up talking about the other. And I don't blame them. I'm at an age where food is my favorite interest too now.
we will try to get more guests on here to talk about health, nutrition, healthy eating. We always tend to talk about how to cook and prepare and what to do with different various fruits and vegetables and this and that. And says the parsnips are great to add flavor to soups, and you can mash them like potatoes. I'll have to try that. I can just picture that. I'll make mashed parsnips. My wife's going to be like, what is that?
They're good.
Parsnips, honey.
They're good with hollandaise type sauce. Smash them, put a little hollandaise sauce on them. They're if like I say, if you like turnips, you like that whole family. That unfortunately my wife doesn't, so makes it a little difficult. I don't get those very often, and you don't find them in restaurants very often.
No, you don't. And you really don't see it in grocery stores all that often. They don't always have it. So, Bernie, do you need a lot of room for growing muscadines? And
Nope.
how long does it take to grow and mature?
You can do muscadines in only one or two plants, and you only need 6 feet linear, and you can do it across along a fence or not much space at all. To generate a plant that's producing 3 to 5 years, depends on the variety and how you take care of the vines. They take kind of a unique system to set them up initially. Takes a little work to train them, but it's really not that hard. And once they're trained and growing, they really don't take a lot of maintenance. So I'm a big fan of the muscadine wines. So we have a couple of wineries in the county that are doing muscadine wines, and it's pretty good. The grapes are good eating, and you don't have to worry about Pearson's disease, which is a problem if you want to try and grow bunch grapes.
Yeah, for a homeowner, if you have a chain link fence that you can grow them on, that's perfect. It's going to be strong enough to hold them up, and I found the University of Florida publication on that. And
I think we doubled up on that one.
We're all fighting for links, I guess. So yeah, muscadines do very well in Florida. Generally, the only grapes that you're going to be able to grow here in Florida is going to be muscadine types, although they are coming out with new varieties that are crossed, I guess, between muscadines and more traditional wine grapes that you would grow up north or in California. So that's something to look for. You're going to have, because not everybody likes muscadines. I like them. I like muscadine wine too, but not everybody does.
I've seen people be able to grow. My uncle, back in Sumter County, he tried his dangest to grow muscadine grapes. We had a spot out in the pasture that he had all set up nice. He had all the stuff to do it and couldn't grow them. But then, you know, we're in the back 40 and all the woods and everything, and you'll just see him flourishing back there.
Yeah,
you know,
you
with
can find the wild ones.
no intervention, but those ones he had up front were kind of sad.
And the wild ones, every once in a while, you'll find one where the stem coming out of the ground and going up the tree is like this big around.
Mm-hmm.
They will grow for years and years and years and years and go all the way up into a oak tree, and you can't even see the end where the grapes are, but they're up there,
Mm-hmm.
and the wildlife can find them.
I know a lot of those other. I'm sure it talks about it in that article. A lot of those, you know, the cultivars that are made for, you know, you to produce actual grapes for consumption. I know that a lot of those, like, you have to prune them pretty well. You have to, like, follow each individual thing to get the max amount of production. So you're not super likely to go find one of the wild ones that has just grapes all over it that you can just pick and eat. I haven't seen too many like that anyway.
Yeah, if you grow them commercially, there is a way to do that. You have to put up very strong trellising. There's a University of Florida publication on that shows you how to build trellis. It involves stout wires at 2 different heights, proper pruning every spring. And if you do that, I've visited wineries and places where they actually grow the grapes, and oh my gosh, they do well.
Mm-hmm.
If you follow the right steps, those things grow like crazy.
It's crazy if you know what you're doing, that things tend to work out. You know, if you do things correctly.
And says muscadine juice is delicious. Yeah, I've never tried doing that. I know a lot of people will make wine, their own homemade wine out of it. Make sure you prune it back. Yeah, you're gonna have to prune it back really hard and correctly in the early spring. Fertilize it. Good amount of water to get it back up and growing. Once we get into rainy season, you know, you don't have to worry too much about irrigation then. They do have seeds. They have kind of thick skins. So I know what most people do is they eat them on the front porch. So you spit the seeds, spit the skin, think watermelon. And you do have to have a sturdy trellis to hold them, because they do well, the plants get big and heavy. And if it's a little chintzy trellis, is going to blow over in an afternoon thunderstorm. So hey guys, if anybody has any questions, comments, recipes you'd like to share, maybe you can think of something that they grow up north. You don't know if they grow it here or not. Just go ahead and put it in the comments. I know University of Florida was doing research on growing artichokes here in Florida, up around like St. Johns County, St. Augustine general area. And they grow. I believe they tried a number of different varieties. I'm not sure if they grow well enough to make it a viable commercial crop here or not. But if anybody wants to try growing artichokes, you could try them here also. You guys ever tried artichokes?
Got a jar of artichoke hearts in the refrigerator, and I'll go by and stab a couple of them, and I really enjoy them. I think that's a really good thing. But that's kind of an acquired taste type thing. You either
Yeah.
like or you don't. So
Yeah, I like the artichoke hearts. I've never had like the artichoke where you have to know how to peel it back and how to get to what part you're trying to eat. I've never tried that. Sounds like a lot of work.
the sad part about it is the kids don't grow up today getting the variety of things. I grew up in a family. We owned a grocery store, and if we didn't sell it, we ate it. So uh,
Okay.
everything we ate was the stuff that nobody else wanted. And my grandmother was one of those people that put in a half acre to an acre of garden every year, and all winter long we ate what came out of the garden. So uh, I was very very fortunate in that I had a very broad spectrum of things when I was young, and I like a lot. But when you exist on hamburgers, hot dogs, pizza, and uh, maybe some rice-a-roni or spaghettios or something, it's hard to develop that palate and enjoy all those things. So that I think so many people are missing out nowadays.
I agree. I tried a lot of different things when I was a kid. But I can't really think of any vegetables I don't like. Lima beans aren't necessarily my favorite. Brussels sprouts are good if you put cheese on them. Other than
I,
that, I
I
enjoy it all.
I've found that a lot of times there are things that I wouldn't normally eat that I develop a craving for. So you're right, lima beans I wouldn't want every day, but once in a while, lima beans are really good. So uh, we have lima beans about every 3 months, and that kind of satisfies it. And I really enjoy them. But there's so many things that way. We
I'm
had
like
some
that with
carambola the other day, and uh, if you go around and check, you'll find that 99% of the people have never eaten one, and yet it's a really nice fruit.
I'm like that with raw oysters. Funny enough, I need to eat them once every year or so, and I'll be like, all right, I really want some raw oysters, and then I'll wait a year because every other time it seems really gross.
Yeah,
Oysters and horseradish.
No, it's oysters on a saltine with some Tabasco, and that's
Yeah.
that's enough for me.
add a little Tabasco and pop them off the half shell. I love oysters on a half shell.
Gotta be careful. That's a food
Oyster
safety thing. You
dressing,
really gotta be careful.
oyster stuffing. That's you don't get that very often either.
I don't even know. I've never heard of oyster stuffing. I don't know what that is.
I think that's
I've
something you
had it
get
at least once.
north.
But I guess we need to put the little warning in about eating shellfish could be dangerous. I used to love raw oysters, but now I think I might really want that cooked instead. Although I love sushi,
Mm, not big on sushi.
good stuff. So Anne says she loves artichokes and she'd like to try growing them. The heart is tender and delicious, and you can make it pristine with lots of good recipes. You know, years ago, to get different recipes and learn how to cook different things, you had to go out and buy a bunch of cookbooks. Now you just use this Google thing that's on your computer, and you can find every recipe in the world. Give it a try. If you like it, print it and hold on to it. If you hate it, never make it again.
I was just trying out the
And artichoke dip, I've tried artichoke dip. I like that very much.
That's very good.
Yep. We need to have Brittany on here so we can cover all the seafood and shellfish topics. Because Hernando County is right on the Gulf Coast.
Catch
Which that reminds me, I need to go fishing. I need to make the
Oh, yeah.
time for that.
I like to wait till it's a little bit cooler. Just
Yeah.
a touch cooler. It'll be high time soon.
Yeah.
I haven't ever had much luck coming out of over here, like Bayport. I always make the drive to Crystal River.
You know, if you're out there and it's a beautiful day and it's quiet and you're by yourself, doesn't really matter if you catch a fish or not. I found it's still a nice, enjoyable day. And if you're out there right now around dawn or pre-dawn, it's pretty nice outside. Not chilly yet, but it actually is not steaming hot pre-dawn.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting there bit by bit. So hey guys, if anybody has any last minute questions here on, I guess, shellfish and recipes, and of course lawns and gardens and trees and shrubs and bushes and everything else. Oh, I almost forgot. I have a quick picture here that I got an email on from a lady in Hernando County. This is an avocado tree, a blurry one. But this is planted not too long ago. And obviously it's wilting and some of the leaves are brown. And she asked, you know, am I overwatering it? Am I not watering it enough? Is there something I need to do? And I told her that when you transplant a tree, you're going to have to water it every day unless it rains really heavy. If it rains, you can take the day off, but you're going to have to water it every day for a while until it becomes rooted. So probably keep watering it for now, and then I send her the information on the disease of avocados that has become a widespread problem across Florida.
Yeah, I have one of the avocados that is not cold sensitive, but the avocados have so little meat on them that they're not really edible. So I babied the tree for 8 years before I got avocados, and then when I finally started getting avocados, I couldn't do anything with them. So,
and Bassem points out he's obviously been listening to us because he says it might be planting it too deep. Very good, very correct. You would be amazed at how many people make the mistake of planting a new tree or really any plant too deep. And if you do that with a tree, it looks fine for a while and then it will die. And I know we had a previous Hernando County forester who said every time she has to go to a neighborhood, oh, my tree, the oak tree they put in, it was beautiful, died overnight. Is it a bug, a disease? She looks down, plant is 6 inches too deep. She said she can't
We
believe
can only water one, but we can only water once a week. That's why our tree died.
yeah.
Yeah.
You can go out
Believe
there
me,
with
if I had $1
or a garden hose and water just that tree. That's not a violation. So
yeah, exactly.
What's really interesting before we had so many problems with citrus, back 15 years ago, people would plant citrus trees 2 inches too deep, and they would die within 3 or 4 years. And it was amazing. It was almost always when the plant died. I have had this plant for 4 years. You could just be positive that it was planted too deep. And if you would dig one up, here 2 inches below starts this big root mass that is going around and around and around, and it eventually just squeezed the life out of the root system. So it is, people don't understand that plants need oxygen. They need it in the root system. So the leaves are taking in carbon dioxide, the roots are taking in oxygen. And if the root structure isn't where it's supposed to be, the balance of those two gases isn't correct, and the plant isn't feeding itself. And if you don't have anything to eat, just like people, if you turn off the food on a person for a couple of weeks, they get very sickly. Well, you do the same thing to a tree for a year, and it starts getting sickly. So.
Yeah, very important to plant it at the correct depth. And You'd be amazed at how long you have to water a tree for after you purchase it and put it in the ground, if it's a large tree. And people in subdivisions, and I've dealt with some of them before, will work with a landscaper and they'll bring in a oak tree, magnolia tree, elm tree, whatever kind of tree, and it's in like 100-gallon pot, and it's a good sized tree. And they'll bring the guys in and the bobcat and dig a hole, put it in the ground, and they go out there and water that brand new tree for the first week or two. That's not enough. If a large enough tree, you may have to go out there and water it on a daily basis unless it rains for as long as a year. So very important. Bigger the plant, the longer that you have to water it for until the roots start to spread out and it's established and get by on its own.
And like you said earlier, you are allowed to spot treat plants like that. If you have a landscape plant that you planted, that's not even outside of your new plant establishment period. You can water with your watering hose in one spot like a tree. You're allowed to do that.
Yeah. You just can't run the irrigation for your whole yard.
Yeah, just to water your tree. That won't fly.
You probably had a few people try that.
No, for sure.
No.
And I think I've rolled through and shown my email address. If anybody has any other questions, shoot me an email, send pictures. Here is Colby's email address and also his link tree. So if you're a Hernando County resident and you're interested in a rain barrel class or a compost bin class, you can contact Colby about that. If you need information on Florida-friendly plants and what do I plant here, what do I put there, go ahead and contact him. Going back up, Bernie is our master gardener who's at the office as a general rule every Thursday. And here's the phone number, so you can always call Bernie on a Thursday or stop by. Bernie gets lonely. We don't want him to get too lonely, so stop by with a bug or a leaf or a question or pictures, and he's more than happy to help you out.
I feel like the Maytag man, so.
The lonely guy. There's days where people, like, we get really, really busy. A lot of people come in, and there's other days where nobody comes in.
Had a lady call this morning with a Norfolk Island pine.
Oh.
And it's 8 foot tall. She'd like to cut it down a little bit, keep it at maybe 6-7 feet. And because it says pine, my initial reaction is you can't do that. If you cut the top out, you're going to kill the plant. So looked it up, and it turns out that you can. University says that you can cut the tree off, and then you can reshape the branches to maintain the shape of the plant. Doesn't say how long it'll live. So I'm curious as to whether that's a permanent solution. If you could keep a Norfolk Island pine, say at 8 or 10 feet indefinitely and have it look good. Couldn't really find that information online. But that's one of those plants, people buy them as Christmas trees, put them in the yard, and don't realize that its ultimate height is 80 feet. And it sure goes out of scale in a hurry in the average home. And that thing is fairly heavy. So when it falls right across your roof, it busts all the trusses in your roof and makes a big mess. So there again, think about when you plant a tree, what does that tree look like in 20 years? Not what does it look like in 4 years or 5 years. The ultimate height is going to really affect whether it should be there or not. And so many people, even if they don't want the tree anymore, they become emotionally attached. They absolutely refuse to cut it down. So if you're going to plant something like that and it's going to get 60 feet, you're either going to have to be heartless and cut it down early, or you're going to have to spend a lot of money and have somebody come in and take it down. So it's just, you need to keep track of those things.
Yeah. And Norfolk Island pines can be problematic. They do grow very tall, very narrow, very fast, and they're also fairly brittle. So not a really good, it's not good to have a 40-foot tall Norfolk Island pine in your front yard when a hurricane or tropical storm is coming. So last question for today from E. Jordan. What is the shortest I can prune an avocado tree?
You could probably keep one going all right at 6 feet.
Yeah, and realize that obviously the smaller you keep it, the less fruit you're going to get.
And also realize that that is dependent on the variety. The larger avocados are on more open habitat trees and are going to need more space. If you have one of the Florida avocados, probably 15 or 20 feet is going to be more like the minimum heights. If you have one of the Haas type avocados, probably 10 feet. If you have one of the Mexican race avocados, probably 6 to 8 feet. So it is somewhat dependent on the type of fruit.
Yeah, I know in South Florida, commercially, they keep them at like 15, 20 feet tall. But, down in South Florida, they grow like weeds year round. So they're going to grow. You prune them and they grow right back. They have to be pruned every year. So, Bassam, you're very, very welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in every week. And thanks so much to everybody else for tuning in every week and watching us and bringing us your questions. The easy ones, the hard ones, the ones that we have to look up a little bit more information on. We should be back here again next Thursday. I will not be here next Thursday. Colby, you're going to be around next Thursday?
I don't know. Let's look at the old calendar. Probably I'll be here. Can't see why I wouldn't. I will be here.
Okay, great. So we'll have somebody on here next week. So if you have any questions, go ahead and save them up. And Ann, you are very welcome also. And I think that's our notification that it's time to go ahead and wrap it up. So thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. And we will see all of you back here again next Thursday morning at 10. So until then, everybody have a great week and take care. Bye.